For me, it never died, David, that's for sure. You know, I mean, there's always been at least one good rock song in the charts, and for me, it never died. I've never stopped playing rock and roll. Come Together was rock and roll, Cold Turkey was rock and roll, Instant Calm was rock and roll, Part of the People's rock and roll, the Imagine album's rock and roll. My last album was rock and roll. T-Rex play rock and roll. There was a Dave, what's his name, that made the thing in the barn in Wales was rock and roll. I hear you knocking. Yeah, that's rock and roll. But it's never been away as far as I'm concerned. And of course there's always the Wild Angels, those people doing the exact imitation of the 50s rock, and there's people like me and T-Rex and Yoko for now who are keeping the sort of 70s rock and roll going.
But do you see the great...
I think the Stones are rock and roll, you know, I mean, what else are they?
But do you see it coming back bang like it used to be with...
Oh, it can never be the same again. Never be the same again. It can never have the impact it had on us. That's the only thing I regret Yoko missing. She was never there when Heartbreak Hotel came out. She was there, but she was in a wrong circle, right? Wrong. She was uptown or downtown or whatever. And it can never be the same again, no.
I got into this rock and roll thing. I'm really crazy about it. And it'll be very nice. I can't wait to go on the road with John and sing rock, you see. I mean,
are you going to go on the road together?
Yes, we've been thinking. Well, we have been on the road half and off and on. Over the last 2 years, we played Lyceum.
Cambridge.
The first live show we ever did together was Cambridge, which was an avant-garde show of Yoko's, and I went along as the band. Nobody knew I was coming. That was the first time we performed together. Then we did Lyceum Ballroom with a 30-piece rock and roll band behind us. We're going to remix that now and bring it out for Christmas along with the Frank Zappa live show we did at Paul Maurice. Yeah. So what we've always done is just, because I didn't feel like going through all that rehearsal and putting together the old rock show again. Whatever we did was just spontaneous, like we did the Toronto Rock and Roll Revival and made an album out of that, the live piece in Toronto. So with this Frank Zappa stuff, we'll remix that and the Lyceum and put out a Christmas album. But then after we missed Bangladesh, I was thinking, well, kind of like it should have gone, should have gone. I was thinking about it all the time. And then we've been fighting the concept of having a fixed band. We wanted to keep it loose. But then it got into a problem of you always had to go on and do Blue Suede Shoes or something that everybody knew, because nobody could play anything else. So after this last album, I used mainly Jim Keltner, always Klaus Voormann, and Nicky Hopkins I used this time, which I haven't used him since Revolution on the other side of Hey Jude. I decided they're a pretty damn good group, so let's keep them as a nucleus. Yeah. So we formed a nucleus group with those people, and possibly Clapton, if you'll answer the damn letter. Just say yes and no so I can look for a guitarist, all right? If you're listening, Eric, that's all I want to know. And that would be the nucleus, and Phil Spector wants to play rhythm for some insane reason, so it'd be Nicky, Klaus, Jim Keltner, Phil Spector, John and Yoko, and possibly Eric if he answers the letter, or whoever we find for guitar. And then we decide if we want any augmentation. But I don't want to take the same old rock show on the road, with God on stage and the disciples in the audience. I really want to, especially through Yoko's influence of event and happening and participation, is to involve the audience completely and have something going on in the audience, whether it's theatre or canvas and paint, whatever it is, or instruments for them to play, something that it's going on in the audience as well. With them. So as they're doing something as well. I just don't want to... We're still going to be laying down some funky rock, but I want the audience to be doing something, not just sitting there watching us. No.
Will you play like ballrooms?
We haven't even thought, we haven't thought. First of all, I'm going to get the band together. When we finish this, the play of A Great Foot in the World Apart this Christmas, it'll probably be around late December. We'd start rehearsing or something like that.
Yes, tell me something about the play now, John. That's going to be opening in New York, isn't it?
This is a play called Of a Great Fruit of the World Apart that Yoko, she and a guy called Norman Seaman, who produces all things from classical concerts at Carnegie to off-Broadway.
50 concerts a month.
50 concerts a month he produces. He's a fantastic guy. He produced her original version of a Great Fruit of the World Apart in off-Broadway 10 years ago. It was very far out then. It's still far out now, so virtually she's going to reproduce the same show again. Because still there's only the Living Theatre doing anything near it, really. And when she was doing the freaky stuff then. The Living Theatre were doing The Connection and all those straight plays, so it's a long, long time ago. You can imagine the Living Theatre being straight, right?
I really enjoy doing things together, you know, like my best audience is John, of course, and when I'm doing a piece like that, and if John cracked up or something, I really feel very honored, you know, like I had a nice audience, you know, it's the way I feel about it. And the past 2 years was the first 2 years of our lives, you know, together. It's been pretty hectic, you know. Like the environment was hectic, and we had to sort of change the environment to something that was suitable for ourselves. And also, he was a bit of a male chauvinist, and I thought, well, I'm in love with him, and it's all very beautiful and everything, but maybe I'm going to be killed as an artist. You know, I thought, well, as an artist, maybe I'm finished. And then something happened. Somehow, John's become sort of like he's allowing me a lot.
Well, what happened was, really, I just got secure in my own work. Because after the sort of demise of the Beatles so-called thing, I was a bit shook up, whether I knew it or not, you know. And, of course, it affected my work, and I was very insecure, and I'd be thinking, maybe Paul wrote everything, or maybe it was all George, you know, and maybe I didn't do anything, and I'd have to... And then I'd look through the list of songs and think, well, I did write that, well, I helped with that, oh, okay, I'm all right, then, I'm all right. So then I started doing my own work. And then when I got secure in myself, then I could allow her to work, you know. Yes. And so that's how it worked.
It just shows you then, with all the money one can earn, that doesn't bring security of mind, does it?
Well, you see, we earn millions and millions of money, but I must tell you that the Beatles got very little of it. We've all got houses, but it's usually, we've managed to pay for them finally now after all these years. Yes. And that really only happened since Klein came in, the so-called Wolf. And there's millions earned, but we never got it, you know.
Who got it then, John?
Well, you know, there's lots of big companies in London with various names. You just have to check them out and their connection with the Beatles, and you see where the money's gone.
Everybody.
And in America, too. Everybody connected with us is millionaires, except for the Beatles.
You're not
They used to tell Paul and I we are millionaires. We never have been. I might possibly be coming up to it shortly, you know, if we get lucky. But it's true, you know. We didn't get the money.
And you certainly aren't a millionaire. You never have been a millionaire.
No.
Not George, Ringo.
No. George and Ringo are practically penniless. Yoko now has got more money than they had when Klein came in, and that's in 2 years, you know. Yeah. And we were working 10 years, and the money was just...
the contract, the wrong contracts, you know.
You know, Brian was a beautiful guy, Brian Epstein, and he was an intuitive, theatrical guy, and he knew we had something, and he presented us well. But he had lousy business advice, not to say that somebody was crooking him particularly, but he got lousy advice.
And everything. Taken
advantage of. We all were, Brian included, you know, and none of us got it. So, I mean, that's life. I mean, you know, it's no big news that some artist or some kids in showbiz got robbed, right? It's the same old story. The attitude is, if they have money, they won't work. Yes. That's the old adage in show business. Yes. If you give the kids money, or the star, or whoever he is, money, he won't work. That's not true. If you give an artist money, he's secure and he can work. It's the worrying about money and whether he's going to have to... my big worry always was, am I going to be Mickey Rooney having... I know we've earned it, but where's it gone? I've got to pay the tax someday. Yes. They won't... It's no good me saying, well, I never got it. The books say that it came to the Beatles, you know, or something like that, and we're going to have to pay tax the rest of our lives. That was my big worry. So it's no big news, though. We were robbed, so, you know, it's old hat stuff.
But so you had your...
I just warn any kids coming in the business, don't sign anything.
Right.
Unless the lawyer's your brother.
Yeah. Right.
You know, keep it in the family.
Keep it in the family. Did you feel very bitter about this, John?
Oh, sure, you know. Well, I mean, for a long time we didn't know, because, of course, we were living well with those...
You had all the material...
We seemed to have all the material good, but it was like... we got the cake when they got the cash, right? You know, they kept us happy, and just, you know, mainly we were working all the time anyway, so what else could we do? Oh, we lived in a nice hotel, so what? The tour was paying for it, etc., etc. We had a car each, we had a TV and a Rolls Royce, and it was usually on the company or whatever they do, that way of doing it. And
but your house was on a mortgage like anyone else?
Yes.
And have you paid for your house yet?
No, I'm going to be. I'll pay for it by the end of the year. I mean, I would go and buy something that's so big.
Oh, but it's a beautiful.
It's a beautiful house, and I probably never get the money back on it. I'll just have to hang on to it and hope the land's worth something when they want to put a road through in 1912 or something.
You mentioned that there's been a divorce. Do you think there's going to be a reconciliation of the group ever?
I can't see. There's no reason why we should ever play together. I mean, listen to the music. Would George have ever flourished like that if we'd carried on with the group? No chance. There was no room.
I thought he was working on a solo album.
Well, I suppose we could have worked together. And no, he wasn't. He worked on the solo album after the split.
You don't think you would have had the chance to have done
If people need the Beatles so much, all they have to do is to buy each album and make a track out of it, and put it on tape, track by track. One of me, one of Paul, one of George, one of Ringo. If they really need it that much, because otherwise the music is just the same, only on separate albums. Instead of having the White Album or Abbey Road, where I sing a song, George sings a song, Paul sings a song, Ringo sings a song, one, like that. We make an album each. That's the only difference, and it's far better music because we're not suppressed. In the Beatles, by the time the Beatles were at their peak, we were cutting each other down to size. We were limiting our capacity to write and perform by having to fit it into some kind of format, and that's why it caused trouble. You know?
But you don't ever see...
I mean, for me personally, when you listen to the Stones music, nothing's ever happened. It's the same old stuff goes on and on and on forever. I've never heard anything different from them. So I think it'd be a good scene if they broke up and made some individual music, because it's the same old rehash of the same stuff over and over again.
Well, I ask you this because every time I...
Nothing personal, Mick. You know I love you and Keith. But, you know, I mean, I think it'd do them good to split up.
I ask you this because every time Beatles come up in a conversation, people say, "Oh, do you think they'll play together again?" You know, it's the thing that...
well, I couldn't say no categorically on the Bible and on Grapefruit, I swear. Gets Grapefruit in. I swear we'd never play together again under any circumstances whatsoever. I've no idea. But personally, I don't see any reason to form that group again. Paul has his new band. I have a new band. No doubt George will have a band and Ringo will have a band. I mean, that's why I brought out the Plastic Ono Band originally, to differentiate. That's me. That's my band. You know, it might be non-existent and it might vary every time you see us, but that's what I'm playing with. That's what I am.
Freer now, I think.
Yes. But you're obviously friends again. I mean,
well, we're not fighting too much. It's silly, and I always remember watching the film with who was it? Not Rodgers and Hammerstein. Those British people that wrote those silly operas years ago. Who are they?
Gilbert and Sullivan?
Yeah, Gilbert and Sullivan. I always remember watching the film with Robert Morley and thinking, we'll never get to that. You know, and we did, which really upset me, but I really never thought we'd be so stupid, but we did.
What, like splitting like they
Like
did,
splitting and arguing, you know, and then they come back and one's in a wheelchair 20 years later, you know, all that. I never thought we'd come to that because I didn't think we were that stupid. But we were naive enough to let people come between us, and that's what happened, you know. But it was happening anyway. I don't mean Yoko, I mean businessmen, you know. All of them.
Do you think businessmen were responsible?
Well, no, it's like anything. When people would decide to get divorced, you know, quite often you decide amicably, but when you get your lawyers and they say don't talk to the other party unless there's a lawyer present, then that's when the drift really starts happening. And then when you can't speak to each other without a lawyer, then there's no communication. And it's really lawyers that make divorces nasty. You know, if there was a nice ceremony like getting married for divorce, it would be much better. Even divorce of business partners, because it wouldn't be so nasty. But it always gets nasty because you're never allowed to speak your own mind. You have to talk in double Dutch. You have to spend all your time with a lawyer, and you get frustrated, and you end up saying and doing things you wouldn't really do under normal circumstances.
Do you, John, you don't think it had anything to do with marriage and wives? And that's
no, because I was married from before the Beatles left Liverpool. That never made any difference. I mean, Sin didn't have a career like Yoko does, but married, Patty had a career. That never upset it. You know...
But she's given her career up, hasn't she?
Well, not really for a time being, but she's never became a housewife. I mean, Patty just was big enough to decide when she works and to do special things like all top models do, and that's the position she's in. Not because she gave up her work to become a housewife. You won't see Patty washing dishes. I mean, she will wash a dish, but I mean, she has a career of her own, and. Maureen is a fantastic artist in her own right as well. She has apart from bringing up all those that tribe of Ringo, she also is an artist, you know. And it has nothing to do with wives. If it is Yoko and Linda's fault for breaking up the Beatles, can they have the credit for the great music that each of us have made individually? Because Paul is selling...
a clash between Yoko and Linda?
No, Linda and Yoko never had an argument, ever.
No.
Never.
How can two women split up 4 strong men? It's impossible. You know,
Well,
the Beatles
some
were disintegrating
women
slowly
some-
after
yeah.
Brian Epstein died. It was a slow death, and it was happening. It's evident in Let It Be, although Linda and Yoko were evident then, but they weren't when we started it, I don't think. It was evident in India, when George and I stayed there and Paul and Ringo left, and it was evident on the White Album, you know. It's just natural. It's not a great disaster. People keep talking about it as if it's the end of the earth. It's only a rock group that split up. It's nothing important. You know, you have all the old records there if you want to reminisce. You have all this great music. I think Paul is selling more records than he ever sold as a Beatle. I'm selling more than I ever sold as a Beatle, as an individual. Between the 4 of us, we're selling many more records than the Beatles ever did, obviously. It's insane. People, even the young people, refuse to accept change. That's what the problem is. They will not accept change. Now, there's a place in New York in the Village called Max's Kansas City, and everyone who's everyone always eats there, all the artists and everyone who's everyone. Now, Max's Kansas City have decided to change the decor after 20 years. Yeah. All these artists and radicals and revolutionaries are getting very upset because he's going to change the decor. That's how the world is. The underground are just as straight as the overground, and they don't like change. And that's all there is to it, you know. No. And I told people 20 years ago, whenever it was, I'm not going to be singing She Loves You when I'm 30. I was 30 last year, and it was then when I broke the band up. Or I decided to leave. I don't know when they decided to leave. Whatever. That's when it happened. I knew I wouldn't be doing the same thing. It just doesn't work like that. It's like a rugby team. Sometime you have to get married and leave the boys on a Saturday night. That's how it is.